Hey everybody. So I'm coming to you guys today with something very special. I've actually come across a story about Jesus that I'm sure most of you didn't even know existed. And I know that that may sound crazy to say. I mean, everybody's heard about Jesus. We've only been talking about the Savior for the last 2,000 years. But what if I told you that there's another story, one that's been hidden in Jewish texts, a story that calls him a deceiver, the son of a forbidden union, even a magician who led Israel astray. This isn't Sunday school, but this is the version of Jesus' story that history has tried very hard to erase. Before we start, let me tell you, as a Black American, I do not condone racism, racist stereotypes, or violence of any kind. This video is for educational and intellectual purposes. So if you do not feel that you're mature enough to handle this content responsibly, you should probably go and find something else to watch. I do not believe that history should be changed to pander to lunacy and hatred or to appease crybabies. We should all have objective and transparent access to the events of the past so that we can learn and grow from those experiences. Now that that's done, let's get into it. Ever been listening to somebody and be able to just feel it in your bones that they're lying? Well, this is what happened to me. I'm watching this intriguing interview between a rabbi and a Christian, and the rabbi, he is brilliant, sharp, confident. I am literally entranced by this mix of intellect and arrogance. And I don't know if it's because he's speaking to somebody who's 20 plus years his junior, but truly, were it not for his demeanor and my own sapiosexual proclivities, I might not have caught that ever so slight break in his countenance. You know, that breath of redirection that's just long enough to betray the mouth's intent? Here, just take a look for yourself and tell me what you think in the comments.
And that individual, that period of time is roughly 100 years before the story of the Christian Savior. And it is true that he was named was Yeshu, and he was executed. He was executed on Passover Eve.
So when I see this, naturally I start thinking, is this guy lying? Is Jesus the Nazarene mentioned in the Talmud? I do not sit with questions like this for long because they bug me. So naturally, I went digging. And we're going straight to text, okay? I appreciate what academics and scholars have done before me, and obviously, I start there, but I like to see it for myself. You know, I like to do my own research. My logic is science is, changed every day. How many things did we learn in school that now are completely different? History is written by the victors. I want to know the truth, and I also want to know that I know that I know. You know what I mean? I think that that's good advice for everybody. So, like I said, straight to the text, no hearsay. And I started with the most accessible version of the Talmud, the English translation. I got so lucky because almost right away I come across this very interesting footnote. So when I saw this footnote, it made me realize that, of course, I have to find Hebrew translations of the Talmud. I need to find the version that's referenced here because this is not something that I was aware of before I opened up this Talmud. Now, the particular section, so you can do your own research as well, that we're looking at is Sanhedrin 43a and b. All right, so I am pounding away at the keyboard. I'm digging deep into Google and etc. And I strike gold again. Side-by-side translations of the Talmud in Hebrew with the changes between the texts highlighted in red. So right away, I can see something has been changed. The question in my mind, what? Okay, so now working from right to left, the first version we have is the Vilna edition, printed in Vilna by the Widow and Brothers between April 1880 and April 1886. Now, don't worry, I'm going to include all the original Hebrew in an Excel and video format via links so you can do your own research. But I will read how these passages translate for you now. And it was taught, on the eve of Passover, they hanged Yeshua, and a herald went out before him for 40 days proclaiming, Yeshua is going to be stoned, for he has practiced sorcery and enticed and led Israel astray. Whoever knows anything in his defense, let him come and speak on his behalf. But they found nothing in his defense, and they hanged him on the eve of Passover. Ulla said, do you suppose that he was someone for whom a defense could be sought? He was a meset, which is one who entices others to idolatry. And the merciful one says, do not spare him or shield him. This comes from Deuteronomy 13:9. But Yeshua was different because he was close to the government. Now, the next passage reads, our rabbis taught Yeshua had 5 disciples, Mattai, Nakai, Netzer, Bunai, and Toda. They brought Mattai to trial. They said, shall Mattai be executed? He said to them, Mattai means, when shall I come and appear before God? They answered, yes, Mattai shall be executed. For it is written, when shall he die and his name perish? They brought Nakai. He said, Nakai, which means innocent, should not be killed. For it is written, do not kill the innocent and righteous. They said, Nakai shall be killed. For it is written, in secret places he murders the innocent. They brought Netzer. He said, Netzer, which means branch, shall live, as it is written, a branch shall grow from his roots. Now, I want to pause for a second because this comes from Isaiah 11:1. And I'm sure you know, as many people do, that there are prophecies in Isaiah that are thought by many Christians to be directly related to the Savior, to Jesus. And there's one in particular that I think has been a bit of a conundrum because it talks about a seed coming forth from this prophesied Messiah in Isaiah. Try to say that 10 times fast. And obviously we know that, Jesus was crucified and didn't have any children, according to what we have in the Bible. So I found this of particular interest, but let's continue. They said, Netzer shall be killed, as it is written, you are cast out from your grave like a loathsome branch. They brought Bunai. He said, Bunai shall not be killed, for it is written, Israel is my son, my firstborn. They said, Bunai shall be killed, for it is written, behold, I will slay your son, your firstborn. They brought Toda. He said, Toda, which means thanksgiving, shall not be killed, for it is written, a psalm for thanksgiving. They said, Toda shall be killed, for it is written, one who offers thanksgiving honors me. Now, we're not going to read through every single one because there are minor textual changes between these versions of the Sanhedrin 43a and 43b over time, but nothing like what we are specifically looking for, which is a direct and explicit reference to Jesus the Nazarene. And I guess that is true until we get to the Florentine edition. The Florentine edition is an Ashkenazic manuscript that comes from sometime before mid-13th century, where a very, 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 very surprising change is evident, okay? This version reads, and it was taught in a baraita on the eve of the Sabbath and the eve of Passover, they hanged Jesus the Nazarene, and a herald went out before him for 40 days proclaiming, Jesus the Nazarene is going to be stoned because he practiced sorcery and incited and led Israel astray. Anyone who has any reason in his favor, let him come and plead on his behalf. But they did not find anything in his favor, and they hanged him on the eve of the Sabbath and the eve of Passover. Ulla said, do you really think Jesus the Nazarene had a case for defense? He was an insider And the merciful one, i.e. God, said, do not be compassionate and do not cover him. Rather, Jesus the Nazarene was different because he was close to the government. This is mind-blowing. I wish I could take a second to just resonate in this all over again, but I've already done my screaming and jumping. So I'm just going to continue with the next part where it says, our rabbis taught Jesus the Nazarene had 5 disciples. Their names were Mattai, Nikai, Netzer, and Toda, with the same verse exchanges that I've already quoted following this. Now, is this a fluke? Is this the one version of the text of the Torah where we see Jesus the Nazarene explicit in the text? Absolutely not. No. Because the exact same reading actually appears in another Ashkenazic textual witness. This one is a little hard to say, so please bear with me if I'm, brutalizing this pronunciation. But we have the Karlsruhe Reuchlin version of the Talmud. And as I said, it has the exact same rendering. Jesus the Nazarene. So, please allow me to put this issue to bed. I can say with a resounding yes that despite what this rabbi said in the video, which I absolutely believe that he's, as a rabbi, has had exposure to these different translations of the text, and therefore I'm pretty certain, although I can't be 100% sure, that when he said or tried to make that young guy who was speaking with him feel like he was, following some crazy conspiracy theory for thinking that Jesus could be mentioned in the Talmud, he knew that he was being intentionally misleading, right? Because as we see, Jesus the Nazarene, not some random ambiguous Yeshu who could be anybody 200 years before the Christian Savior. Nah. Explicit, okay? In the Talmud. And everything that was said to have been done to him appears in multiple textual witnesses. It's obvious that over time, his identity and these lines were censored, hidden, covered up, stricken. It's no longer a rumor. This is textual history. But is this the only juicy morsel of history about the Messiah or anything else that I've come across in my constant questioning? Not in the slightest. So if you enjoyed this content, please make sure you subscribe, you share, leave me a comment, and of course, you could always buy me a coffee. I'll make sure it's linked somewhere you can find it. If you're seeing this on TikTok, it'll be in my bio. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can look in the description. Let me know if you guys want to see more. I hope you have an amazing day, and